So, welcome. I'm Tricia Broderick with Agile for All. I'm a coach and trainer here, and we've been doing these live streams for quite a while now, pretty consistently. It's a lot easier to be consistent when I'm not traveling as we go forward, but the goal here is just to kind of give a little bit of information every couple of weeks along with our daily doses, which are even a little bit smaller. So the last couple, I'd say the last 2 or 3, or I think, I've been focused on liberating structures, and I was going to do another round of that, but I got some requests after the last one to go a little general for a second before we even talk more about how to make some of these techniques online, to just online, whether it's a training or it's a meeting, just some tips and dynamics of things that are out there. And I didn't want to do this session before I actually kind of could validate them at least a little bit. Not that I don't trust other people and their techniques, but I like being able to speak from experience. And so that is what we're going to focus in on today, is just things that I have found that have been really helpful in making sure this is as engaging, as non-soul-sucking as you can kind of make it. First, we have to just acknowledge that, yes, face-to-face is best, and video is an improvement. Being able to see somebody, like right now, not being able to see another face is really, really challenging. And even when you can see another face, it is draining. It is not the same level of connection that is possible in person. It's actually what I wonder sometimes if introverts feel like with in person, like just the draining that I feel when I'm online and only in this video kind of communication. So knowing that it's just tough in general, there are some things to kind of help. And again, this is whether it's actual training course that you're putting out there, or it is just a meeting. Even an hour-long meeting can have some things. So let's go through some of these tips and talk through what I've experienced. One, don't tool, and I don't know if I say one. I guess these aren't really, I didn't really spend the time putting these in priority order. So bullet first, not number one thing, but just option A, I guess, instead of one, is yes, there are a lot of tools out there. A lot of tools. And I sat in a meeting the other day where in 30 minutes, they tried using 6 different tools. It's too much. If the shorter your meeting or the shorter your training is, the shorter the time you're going to have everybody, the less tools you're trying to use in that moment. It's too overwhelming. It takes a lot of time to transition with your instructions and where people are at. Minimize it. You can do quite a bit, even within Zoom. Like I can annotate in here. It's not the best. It's not the most amazing thing ever. But if I've only got 30 minutes, I don't want people going, I can't connect, or where are you at, and all of these other dynamics, man. Stick with its least number of tools as you can possibly get away with that still allow you to be engaging and facilitate, whatever you're trying to do in the moment, okay? So yes, there are a lot of tools out there. Doesn't mean you have to use every single one of them in every single thing you do online. It's just not necessary. Even if the functionality is not as great, you can get away with it. I just did a conference and I would have loved to use a Miro or something along those lines, but I just did everything in Zoom because I didn't, first of all, I don't know how many people are in the session. Second of all, I don't want to waste time trying to make sure everybody can connect. Worst case scenario, share your screen that is that other tool so that nobody's trying to find that, okay? But limit the tools. Bullet B or 2 or whatever. Ease into the tools. I do set aside time, even in meetings. Don't even plan for the first 5 minutes to be, even remotely productive in some ways. Plan some time for, can you hear me? Everybody good? Do we see everybody? Like, everything okay? It's just gonna happen. Things happen. We have to have a lot of compassion for what's going on right now. And the worst part about it is there are still people running from meeting to meeting. And although they don't have to go anywhere, they just gotta switch it. They gotta find the new links. They gotta switch over, right? Like, it's still just painful. So, but if you overwhelm them right at the beginning with every feature that's in that tool, you're just going to have to repeat yourself. It's the same concepts in every other thing that we talk about and do. Do a little, learn a little, do a little, learn a little, and keep repeating that. And so when people get into a Zoom in one of my classes, I don't tell them about breakout rooms right away. I just get them basic visual things right off the bat. Okay, let's look at the gallery versus the speaker view. Here's the number to call me if you get disconnected, right? Like, some really basic things right off the bat. Then later, when I'm about to do our first breakout, I've dedicated some extra time to explain breakouts and what's going to happen in that. Then they have the ability to hear a little bit of that content and have a concrete practice, that moment where they're going to use it right away versus, hey, remember when I told you about breakout rooms an hour ago? Okay, we're going to do that now. Like, ease them in, which may mean you have to design and facilitate your design a little bit different. You may not want to kick off right away with a breakout room. Go ahead and make it. Normally, personally, in person, I do. I like having a lot of energy and everybody talking with each other in small groups. And I kind of let that go a little bit for virtual, because right now everybody's kind of going, am I in the right spot? What are we doing? Who's doing things? And I can't kick right off with that. Now, if they're already used to it, get going, start away with breakout rooms. But those first times you're using it, ease into the tools as well. Don't overwhelm people right out of the gate with every function, every feature that is there. What do we got next? Not 3, C. I'm going to start forgetting what letter I'm at. Have backup options. Very, I just mentioned this, I'm putting my cell phone number at the start of a training, especially because in trainings, I don't necessarily know everybody that's there, but even at work, what's the option if somebody's internet goes down? Do they know what they need to do? Right? You've got to have some of those working agreements in terms of what's going to happen if somebody's internet just goes down, if the tool Zoom gets blown away and the servers are down and no one can get into Zoom. In some cases, you're like, well, just cancel, which might obviously, but in other cases, it's not that simple. So have some backup plans. I've been doing things where when I use a collaboration board such as Miro, and in fact, I'm gonna, in case that's a little hard to it's this collaboration board. I've been taking, it has an option to take an image of the whole board by itself. And so before class starts, I actually take an image of the board, because if Miro goes down during class, I still have the ability to share my screen with whichever part of that. And it may not be as interactive as I wanted it to be, but I'm not now stuck. I'm not trying to figure out how I'm going to proceed forward with that facilitation technique or what we can do there. So really try and think of some backup options, alternative exercises, alternative approaches when things go awry and you don't have them. And what are you going to do? Some cases you might have to cancel the meeting, especially if it's a 30-minute meeting, maybe not. But take a little bit of time and think of that beforehand. We had some strange connection issues this go around where my camera, I have a second camera to when I print, when I'm writing on the board back here, and I flip chart paper and I can put it up here and then I write on it, but this camera that's like right to this side right here gets closer so people can see it, and it just crashed. It just went down. I was like, okay, what are we gonna do? Because I've got 20 people, well in this class it was 24 people sitting there going, we're waiting. Luckily, I had a backup, right? I had a backup camera, I had a backup other options. you've got to be a little bit prepared for at least some contingencies. You can't prepare for everything, but at least some of them you can, because it's guaranteed my mouse battery could go out, right? Like just what could go out. And so I try and think of at least some of those, and I have like backup. So I have a backup mouse if I need it, right? And just available and right there. And so take a little bit of time to think through some of those risks and have some backup options. The next one, people talk about breaks. That's not shocking. That's not enlightening. Here's the thing I'm going to mention that I am not good at, and I'm willing to bet there's a few of you not so good at it. When you have everybody else take a break, you take a break too. I have been struggling with this. Like I make sure, even when I'm like, okay, we break every hour for at least 10 minutes. Get up, move around, even don't just check those emails. Don't just jump onto something else. Get up, move around, even step outside, get some air, right? But I'm not doing it. Say as I do, not as I do, right? Do what I say, not what I do. Some of it is I'm trying to prepare for the next session, which I would normally do if I was training all day, right? Some of it is I'll get a question from somebody that I haven't checked in chat and I haven't gotten back to them yet. So I don't want to lose any of that. So I try and catch up in any of those. But I also stay on the video, which then anybody who's still there might, can ping me and ask a question. And normally in person, that's completely fine. It's not a big deal. But when my derriere is asleep because I haven't stood up, I haven't moved, and then suddenly the 10 minutes are gone and I'm back on, it's not good. It's not good. So I got better. I got better this last time. And I find that if I turn my own video off, that allows me to still do my logistical things. But before anybody goes, oh, hey, Tricia, they can't see me, so they think I'm gone, I'm able to even just briefly stand up, walk for a minute, come back, right? If I don't turn my video off, I find that I'm having a really hard time taking my own advice and knowing that it's the very thing you should be doing. So turn your own video off, mute yourself the minute that break goes on so that you can take a minute for yourself, take care of yourself as well, or you're going to have trouble for the rest of them too with that. So that's, I have to own my own failures too here, people. So I did that one. Here's a thing that I'm learning that is helpful for some others, and I'm actually finding it super helpful for myself too. Like right now, it feels awkward because I am talking literally to myself. I can't see anybody else. I can't, I talk to myself, but not in a mirror. I talk to myself all the time, but I don't look at myself while I'm talking to myself. And it's just, honestly, for me, it's creepy. It's just a little odd and creepy. But others, what they're finding and what I was reading recently is that your brain has a trigger to kind of notice yourself first before other people and things like that. So in a lot of these tools, there's a hide self view option. And so in Zoom, up in the right-hand corner, those three little dots, there's a hide self view. And so when I'm in a class, like when I'm teaching a class, I've got 24 people, I see 25 when I'm up there. So, or 26, because I have somebody else in there too. But like, I hide my own view. And what that also does, one, it makes everybody else a little bit bigger and I can see everybody a little bit better. But two, my eyes don't just keep drifting over to me. Like, is my earrings okay, right? Like, do I have any crazy hair flying anywhere, right? Like, it just seems to be, and I'm blanking on the word. I can't think of the word right now. I'm not super worried always like, I have to be pristine and look, right? Like, that's not me. But yet, when I see myself on video, I'm like, is that earring, all these earrings look kind of weird, right? Like, and I can just completely lose focus and go over there. So for me, hiding the self-view has allowed me to really almost forget for a second what I look like and what everybody else is seeing, but just really get to focus in a little bit more intently on everybody else and what they're, you know, expressing and what they're engaging with in their videos. For others, especially the ones that really hate how they, you know, they have some mental struggles with even seeing themselves on video. Working for TechSmith pretty much knocked out any kind of concerns about my voice or video things, like you're on video nonstop when you work for that company. So, but for a lot of people that's challenging, and we've talked about that in the past. So also hiding the self-view allows them to let that go as well. Super easy technique, but I just find that it's been helpful. Now there are others that turned it off and hated it. And they had to get it right back on because they didn't like not knowing what everybody else was seeing. And that's, you know, for me, I have no concern about that. I've cornered myself off in a room where nobody can, like, for my kids or husband to come at, they have to come from one of these directions that I can clearly see. So there's no risk of anything for that. So that isn't a concern for me with it. The other tip I want to give is dramatically increase your instruction time. Instructions never get enough weight in time in person meetings or in person trainings, but it's even more critical virtually. And so a habit that I've found that I've gone into is I try and, so let's go through tiers of this. If it's super simple, I'll give the instructions. I still try and put in chat the very specific question I'm giving, or the specific frame or the place to go in the Miro board, okay? So even if it's really simple, like something like, you know, put your day one aha into Miro. I might still, you know, put in chat something that said frame 15 aha, put your day one, you know, or day one aha on a post-it note. Even though those instructions are also on the Miro board right there, just gives people kind of that, okay, if they did get slightly distracted, they can see what they were doing and don't feel completely lost. In other cases, they were completely there, but also still seen in the text form, just kind of anchors people and allows them to feel like they do fully understand what they're going to do. If you're going to send them off to like breakout rooms or things like that, two things. One, I do stop. I give the instructions, even if they're simple, right? Give the instructions, put in chat, and then I ask any questions. And this is the tricky part. You actually have to wait. And what feels like you waited for you is not waiting for them. Like, and this applies in person as well. This applies while you're speaking, anything. What feels like forever for you is not for them. So take a minute. A trick that I'll do sometimes is I'll say, okay, any questions before we start? And then I just pause. And I take a long, big drink of water. It kind of gives that moment, like, because you don't want to go and like try and drink really super fast and like get right back in there. And it just kind of forces you to slow down so that people can find the unmute button or find their chat or find however we want to do it and put it out there for people. So give it that space. And I never thought to use the brackets. I'll try that. I think I'll use, you know, asterisks versus the equal signs though, Peter. So just because I like them. And that's a good call because it will stand it out. The reason Peter Green just put in the chat, he differentiated, because if you get a lot of chats in there and somebody has a follow-up questions, it's kind of hard to find where yours is. And I wish they would almost, you know, allow us to color code it or have some other way of doing it and things. I'm telling you, side tangent note, it's making me think of this. I cannot tell you how many times I have said in the last few weeks, if I was Zoom's product owner, if I was Miro's product owner, like Like I have a laundry list of things that I get to judge from afar, right? So to each his own with that too. But so definitely give yourself some instruction time. If you have a complicated exercise or things, try to do what is kind of known as stacked instructions. It's going to take longer because, well, here, let me give you an example. So in one of my classes, we keep building on something. We like build something and then we build more onto it and then we build more onto it. And normally in person, I can kind of shout out, I can keep people going. And this one, what I have to do is like, okay, your step number 1. I'm going to send you off to the breakout rooms and you are going to decide a topic, right? And then they have to go off and do that. And then I bring them all back. And I said, and here's your next step 2. Here's what you're going to do. Again, you're going to be on the same board. You're going to go and do this. Any questions? Okay. They go off, they brainstorm. I come back. Okay. Now here's what you're going to do. Step 3. Yes, it's going to take longer. But if you send too many out there, it's really, really complicated and challenging for people to remember. So the alternative is what you're going to end up spending time is running into each of these breakout rooms because they're going to go, what are we supposed to do next? And there's no way for you to do it. And there's some tools like Zoom has this broadcast to each of the breakout rooms. In my experience, don't even bother using that thing. Like nobody can see it. Nobody knows it, especially if they're focused on another tool. They don't see the message. It doesn't ding. It doesn't come up for them. So I don't even use that broadcast message anymore personally with it whatsoever. So stack your instructions. It's gonna take longer, but you'll actually get people continuing on and being able to accomplish the exercise that you're targeting with it, okay? Remember, your setup is not their setup. So I have 2 monitors. I have a monitor that's raised up so that I'm not doing this the whole day, and I shouldn't do that. You're going to see my grays coming in. I'm trying to be careful here. They don't have the same setup that you do. I'm super jealous of people with standing desks right now. Like, I want a standing desk, and I haven't. But even if I ordered it, we're all home, so I don't have a good place to put it. So I'm just leaving it be right now. But I'm jealous. But not everybody has even multiple projectors. And so be kind of cognizant of that, especially when you're swapping between things. I really try to keep them in the same tool, and once I move to a different tool, try and keep them over there for a little bit, just because the back and forth, especially when you got all these windows going on your machine, it's overwhelming for people, and it can be a lot. For me, it's easy. I'm like, oh, I got this screen on this one, and I can see this one, and I've got 2 cameras, and that's not everybody's setup. And so you really have to be considerate for the people that are going, wait, where am I supposed to be now? And I can't see you, and understand even more why those instructions are important, because if they can't see it, okay, as they're going, they hear your voice coming through something, but they no longer can see you because they're focused on this other tool because they only have one small, laptop screen that they're working off of. I don't know if I mentioned this, I've said this before. We've moved a couple times over the years, and this last move, when we moved from Michigan over to Colorado about 7 years ago, I actually joked, I was like, why are we moving all of these extra monitors, these extra keyboards? Like, we should just get rid of this. I have never been so happy that my husband ignored me in my life. like the extra monitors have been huge, and we didn't have to try and fight to order any. We just had them. So that was huge, huge, huge. I'm saving the last 2, although I said I didn't prioritize the rest of them, I did save the last 2 for the most important. For those that have taken Leading Amazing Teams with Jake Calabrese and myself, know that I like most people. I can't say I like all people, but I like most people. And I do love collaboration. I like working together with people and collaborating and things like that. And co-training, and co-facilitating things, and designing things as we're going out there. Now, co-training is challenging and tricky. And it's true co-training where you're feeding off of each other. It's not, hey, this person's doing this part and this person's doing this part, but where you're really almost acting as one co-training. And for those that have taken our Leading Amazing Teams, you know what I'm talking about when Jake and I are up there. That's even harder to do virtually. And so what I like to usually say is most co-trainings are pair trainings, but if you can find a good combination of true co-trainers that can do virtual, that's magic. And I've been watching what Peter Green and Richard Lawrence have been doing, and it's really nice. And I give kudos to them. So, as Peter's jumping in here, I don't want it to go to your head anything, Peter, but like kudos to you guys for the co-training. At a minimum, though, get what I'm calling a producer, assistant, producer. For me, it's more than an assistant because you want somebody handling some of the technical challenges behind the scenes. If for some reason, putting that chat question in the breaks, because it's hard for your mind to keep going while you're writing the question out in the chat and the instructions in the chat. So have somebody else that you trust that you can engage. I pay the person, right? Like it's not something I just like, hey, can you do a favor for me? I mean, it's a big investment. Even sometimes an hour meeting is a big investment for somebody to engage with you. But it is valuable on many different levels in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it and what they can contribute in the team. I'm lucky that so far the producers that I've been able to work with can help on the exercises too. They understand the material, they understand the things. One of them is trying to get her CST right now, her Certified Scrum Trainer. So this is good experience, good learning for her in what she's doing. So definitely get some help. At a minimum, at least get it towards the beginning of your session. But truthfully, I say if you can't co-train, at least have somebody producing and helping you behind the scenes. It may get boring for them over a little while in the meeting, but better boring and having that backup than not having it and having everything just kind of blow up. And the last thing I'm going to highlight, and we're going to maybe go over time just a little bit. This is a weird thing for me to highlight because it's not something I ever thought I would have to express for myself. I am high energy. There's not a lot of struggles getting me to be passionate. Like I am constantly trying to laugh. I am constantly engaged. I am passionate. I am opinionated. I am willing to engage in any conflict. In fact, I have more trouble when I can't have conflict. I am all in with those kinds of things. And so in my in-person meetings or trainings, energy is not really an issue for me. In fact, as I just do what I normally do in terms of energy, everybody else is getting energy, and then I just feed off of that energy and I improv. It's not an issue for me, okay? And some people are like, oh, and then at the end, aren't you tired? I'm like, actually, I'm more energized. I just keep kind of going up. Now I'll crash eventually, but not right away. And online, I'm even having to increase my energy. You have to increase the stories you're sharing. You have to increase your whole body language, your facial expressions. You have to just almost forget that you're on video and not just try and talk like this to be extremely professional in what you're trying. Because you're putting everybody to sleep. Your monotone is, it's just not good. The more you try and be polished, actually, sometimes the less you come through. And the problem is without really having full ability to feed off of what you're getting from everybody else, you've got to take it even further up a notch to the point that it might seem like you're being ridiculous. Even I, who doesn't really get embarrassed about this, was like, God, am I being annoying? Am I pissing people off? Because they're like, are they reacting? Are they laughing? What is happening right now? And yet, it's exactly what's kind of needed. So it can feel over the top for you in terms of energy, but for them, it's at least, well, okay, this isn't boring and what we're getting into. Now, I'm not saying just scream at the camera. That's not energy, okay, people? But like, think about what stories you can share. Think about humor. Think about just being kind of more expressive in what you're doing and how you're approaching it. And don't be afraid. Like, yes, I'm sitting, and see, even me, like, I hate that I'm sitting. I would like want to walk around. I almost want to dance, right? Like, you're gonna have to level up. I will tell you this. I am exhausted after a 2-day virtual class. Not after in person, but online I am, because I even have to, level it up another level. I can't feed off of other people, which is what helps give me the energy. So I got to keep just tapping it to get there. And it is hard. And like my husband wanted, he's like, okay, let's go do something after the class ended. And I was like, I'm going to have a tasty beverage and I'm going to curl up into my bed because it's exhausting with it. So know that you've got to, just like in person, just like if you were speaking or leading in any ways, you kind of set the tone for the energy in the room. Same applies online, and it's harder because you don't have anything to work off of. So you've got to go one step further, even though it might feel a little awkward and unusual to you, to really have the energy present that you want in these meetings or in these trainings. So we're a little bit over time, but I'm going to stick around for a second to see if we have any questions. Those are my biggest tips. I'm probably going to keep learning more. I've got a class in a couple days, or next week, in the following week. I'm going to keep learning as I'm going, but a lot of the things, apply directly in person or out of person. These were the ones that, these tips for me were things I had heard, but I wanted to validate for myself, right? But things that I really say double down on when you're trying to do these meetings and what they're going to be. So let me give it a minute and see if we have any questions from this platform or from others. Large portion of it. I'm going to have to unlock my phone to see that because it's a long one. So hold on. I'm doing something. I'm, checking my email to the attention of having 2 people. What classes do we have coming up? What classes do we have coming up? I should know that. This is where I'm not a very good person. Sometimes I should just know. I know what classes I have coming up, but not necessarily Agile for All. So I'm going to ask Ashton to put in there. I do believe we have virtual CSMs. I have a private CSM coming up, but I believe that Bob Hartman and Peter Saddington are co-training one coming up. I know that, I believe that Richard Lawrence and Peter Green I think they have a CSPO up. If not, John Miller and Jake Calabrese might have one coming up. So we have some CSMs virtual, we have some CSPOs, we have online courses of the 80-20 things coming on. We still, I just got the question on leading amazing teams. We still have not made a determination if we are going to put leading amazing teams virtual yet. That is a very different type of course that we're super protective of in terms of the brand and quality. And not to say that any virtual class isn't important on the brand and quality. It's just, we maybe unrealistically very protective of that experience that we have right now in that course. So we're going to be exploring that shortly, but no decisions have been made. We do have advanced CSM. This last one was full. The next one I don't think is until July. It will be virtual again. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be in St. Louis. But that course is really focused on facilitation. I wanted to test it first to make sure as an advanced class that it was of a quality level that I would, that we at Agile for All would be proud of. And we're happy with the results. So we will be running that again in July. And I'm sure there's more, but I don't know. I'm actually thinking of running a virtual training, but not a TBR specific one, not a training from the back of the room, but a training course that actually blends some of the training learning from Sharon Bowman's material, work and source her, obviously, but also speaking and just presence and what that means. And so I am working on that. That's my current project that I'm working on in between when we start working on the last. So we have that. We have daily doses going on, and but again, Agile for All, we'll have a list of all the courses out there. So not the best answer. I should probably have these pre-written down and be better about that, but it's me. Anything else do we have? Let me check and see on Facebook. No. And let me look here. Oh, that's good. Oh, sure. Just make me call out my failures. What would I not do again? Okay, let me think. I'm sure there are things. What would I not do again? What is something that I took out that I wouldn't do again? See, you put me on the spot and then I have to think about it. I've clearly made lots of updates to the courses, changed up exercises, and done different things like that. What would I not do again? I'm trying to think. I don't know if I had a massive thing that I'm like, no, that will not happen. I don't think I've had one, and I'm feeling really guilty that because I have to imagine that I have, so I'm not sure. I feel guilty in that I feel like I'm hiding something, but nothing's coming to my mind. We've made lots of changes. I've adjusted when we were breaking for lunch, but not anything. Oh, I have some. Okay, I don't know if it's huge, but I did take it away and decide not to do it. So I was experimenting with breaking every hour, but I was rotating every hour like 50 minutes and then 10, and then I was doing the next hours like 25 and 5s. And I stopped doing that because I found that it kept breaking up the flow. Though I'm not so sure that wasn't more my issue of breaking up the flow of the content and the material than theirs. But I stopped doing the 25/5s and I've stuck to more of the 50/10, 50 or 45/15s, depending on the class and the content. So that is something I've stopped doing that I was, but that still seems like a weak answer. I feel like there's something bigger. So if I think of it, I will own it and put it in the comments at some point, just because I'm feeling guilty that I can't think of something that was major. I think more about time zones now, though, I'll tell you that, in terms of stuff, but not anything that's major. So I'm sorry I couldn't come up with something. It will hit me later because, see, sometimes it's so bad you block it from your memory. But with that, I'm going to call it here. We've gone over a little bit. It is what it is. And wish everybody the best and to please stay safe. And if you have any questions, just let us know. Otherwise, till next time.